So there's a study that was just published in the Journal of Environmental Epidemiology.
I read it all the time.
Yeah, me too. On prenatal exposure to PFAS in drinking water and risk of childhood cancer. So we'll go into the study a little more later on, but just as a background, what are PFAS? There are large groups. There's many different ones. And this is where you can really get in the weeds. Well, this one's not as bad as this one, and this one's been banned. And there's a lot of weeds to get into with it. But just generally speaking, synthetic chemicals manufactured, used in various industries since the 40s.
Wow. Okay.
The reason...
And we call them PFAs because the actual name, polyfluoroalkyl substances.
Yeah, polyfluoroalkyl.
That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we call them PFAs.
PFAs from now on. That's it.
That's the one time you get it. Okay, anyway.
Resistant to heat, resistant to water, resistant to oil.
Those would be useful.
Yeah. So especially in combination.
Yeah.
Think of cooking. Think of rainwear, raincoats, etc. Water resistant things. So when you're combining temperature and water and oil, very multi-use.
Yeah, I was thinking like cars and things like that. You can find all kinds of applications.
Yes.
Okay, so they're useful.
So yeah, which is the problem. Non-stick cookware, water-resistant clothing and fabrics. Food packaging is a big one too. That I'd heard, but was a little new to me. And the concern with them is that they're very persistent in the environment. Their nickname is Forever Chemicals.
Yes.
And the reason is because of their half-life. Their half-life in the human body, so basically how long your body takes to clear it, is on the order of years, depending on which one it is and depending on your health and your kidney status. The half-life in the environment, so when there's nothing actively trying to process it, that's just in its natural state. In water, it's a couple years. In soil, they estimate it could be up to 1,000 years.
Oh my gosh.
So when they say forever chemicals, and we'll talk about, again, there's a lot of different angles here. Yes, it's important to avoid them as much as reasonably possible. Like we'll talk about in water, non-stick cookware, controversial. The FDA has some explanation about why it's okay. But the bottom line is you can't totally avoid them. A lot of what's been done is done.
They literally are everywhere.
Yes. Now, on the other hand, ingesting it is very different than it being in the soil, maybe near your house. So again, a lot of different ways to slice it.
Unless you eat the dirt near your house.
That's true.
In which case we can't help you.
Yes.
I'm very sorry. Good luck.
Yes. So over time they have linked, and again, this is the type of thing where it's difficult to have randomized controlled studies looking at these things. It's exposure widely varies. You're not just going to start hammering people with these amounts. So we've gained information in more correlative manners. This study is correlative, not causative. We do like to look for causative types of studies, but this is another one of those where it's very difficult. The outcomes are not so glaring that you're looking at something like smoking where it's so obvious and apparent and you can tell exactly what's consumed and all of those things. So don't want to get into this too deep, but non-stick pots and pans are very controversial. The FDA's stance is that because they're polymerized, so basically the PFAs are joined together to form large molecules, then applied to the surface, that they're not breaking off into their small, basically the components they're built from and able to be ingested. So that is their stance. Now, what happens whenever the coating is damaged? How much can come off? That's where, if that's something you are firm in, I totally get it. It's prudent.
Yep.
But on the other hand, in terms of how they're made, how they're used, the heat, the oil, the exposure to water, those things, because they're polymerized. And again, we're getting very chemical here, but because they're all put together, it's not the same as if it's dissolved in water that you're drinking.
Okay.
All right. Food wrappers. This was another big one. The microwave popcorn bags, takeout containers, pet food bags, all of those packaging type things that, again, you're trying to have some heat resistance, et cetera. Those are no longer allowed to be sold in the US, but that's only a year old. So again, and it's because those they have found can be kind of more in their natural state, can be inhaled and exposure would matter more.
Makes sense.
So I'm not saying necessarily that this is the absolute fact on these, but this is the FDA stance.
Right.
Related to water, there is now a national standard. The number is 4 nanograms per liter. It doesn't really mean anything, but there is a standard.
Yeah.
That now, so again, as more of these types of studies have come out, and this is one of the biggest ones, that something is, being done about it. It's a national standard set by the EPA.
Okay.